First, I'd like to thank the sponsors for today's class, Jeff and Lori Goldschen, are sponsoring. We thank Hashem, we thank God for the blessings, his family, his friends, and Chabad and all the programs we offer. Thank you very much, Jeff and Lori. I also want to thank them for the new backdrop, so that those out in the Zoom world will be seeing us in a nice big hall. We welcome all of those joining us from across the world on the Zoom channel and on Facebook, and then later on YouTube. I begin by wishing all of you a pre-happy Thanksgiving. It should be a very meaningful Thanksgiving. It shouldn't just be all about the turkey, although turkey is good and we're going to have some for lunch. But it should be the beauty of this holiday and what it represents and what it means. It's something very special. I begin with Steve Schwartz. He left his Upper West Side brownstone at 777 West 77th Street at exactly 7 a.m. to catch the 707 7th Avenue Express. On his way to the train at the corner of 7th Avenue and 77th Street, he notices a manila envelope on the ground. It has no name or address on it. He picks it up. He looks inside, and he finds it filled with $100 bills. He counts it, and he's amazed to discover that there is $7,700. Sevens are wild. Today must be my lucky day. Now he missed the train, having stopped to count the bills. He hails a cab, finishes his commute to go to his office, which was at 77 7th Avenue, and his excitement jumps 7 notches when the cab driver says that will be $7.77. Wow, today's my lucky day. 7, every place I go is 7. I'm not going to work today. Driver, take me to the Belmont Park. Today is my lucky day. Now, cab driver is happy. He gets a nice big fare. He drives into Belmont Park. And what do you think the fare was now? $77.77. It's continuing. Wow. He goes into Belmont Park, and sure enough, there it is, right there on the big screen. There's a horse called 7th Heaven. The odds, 7 to 1. It's running in the 7th race of the day. For sure, his lucky day. God is talking to him. God is showing him he's going to be blessed today. He comes up to the teller. He puts down $7,700 that he found on the street. He wants it on 7th Heaven in the 7th race. He can't miss. And sure enough, 7th Heaven came in 7th.
That's right.
So just when you think you have it all figured out, and you have it down to a system, you realize that God doesn't play by your rules. We have to play by his rules. So here we are, about to enter a beautiful American holiday, the tradition of Thanksgiving. If you put aside for a moment the turkey, the trimmings, the stuffing, the football games, the big sales, the Black Friday, and just focus for a moment on the name of the holiday, Thanksgiving. The word itself, Thanksgiving, the giving of thanks, the gratitude that we have, gratitude for God, gratitude for family, gratitude for friends, for community, the gratitude towards each other. The very name Jew, where does it come from? The Torah calls us B'nai Yisrael, children of Israel. Jacob had a second name, Israel, and we are his children, the descendants. B'nai Yisrael is what the Torah calls us. And yet the world calls us by the name Jew, Jewish, Judaism. Where does this word Jew come from? So it comes from one of the 12 tribes of Israel, the tribe of Judah. Why are we called after the tribe of Judah if we're not all from the tribe of Judah? Well, the kingdom of Judah lasted longer than the kingdom of the 10 tribes. And so the world and the neighbors began to call us by the name Jew for Judah. But it's interesting that that's the name that stuck. But the world calls us all Jewish and Jew, after that very word, Judah. Where does Judah come from? It's the Hebrew word Yehuda. When the fourth of the 12 tribes was born, his mother Leah said, Hapam Odes Hashem. With the birth of this child, I give thanks to God, Odeh, and therefore she named him Yehuda. It's noteworthy that the Jewish people are called by this word a people to give thanks, a people of gratitude. So when we come to this holiday called Thanksgiving, we connect with it very much because Yehuda, we are a people of thanksgiving. And we thank God for all the blessings He has given us and for the mercy He constantly shows us, that He forgives all of our misdeeds and He continues to bless us. In so many of our prayers, we use the word rachamim, and we ask God to treat us with rachamim, with mercy, with compassion. So we have this inside scoop of the judge. Our sages teach us, Kol hamerachim al habrios merachim olav min hashemayim. Whoever has compassion for human beings is shown compassion from heaven. When God sees us showing kindness and sensitivity and caring for each other, the Almighty responds to us in kind, with compassion, with mercy. Compassion begets compassion. And what is the height of this compassion? Again, I turn to the Talmud, and the Talmud says this, Noisei ba'oil im chaveru. I'll translate for you. A person who carries the burden of his fellow. You see at times people that are burdened over by their, what we call tsaros, difficulties, challenges that they're going through. Difficult times. And they're going through this very tough time, and often they go through it alone. Says the Talmud, Kol hanoisei oil, whoever goes ahead and helps that person carry that yoke, as we say in Yiddish, pekala, carry that package of tsaros, and helps them out with compassion and with care and with love, God looks at that moment and blesses that individual with tremendous amounts, showering upon them blessings for all. So I am here on this Erev Thanksgiving to suggest that by making this the focus of our holiday, we can unlock this bonanza of blessing from above. That if we focus on that which we have gratitude for, that which we are thankful for, and pay it forward by therefore bringing gifts and thanksgiving to others, seeing to it that others have what to be gratified for, that is the best way we show God our thanks for the blessings He gave us. Years back, there was a man by the name of Moshe Lieberfeld. Let me tell you a little bit about Moshe Lieberfeld. He was a successful man, happy marriage, missing one thing in life. They weren't blessed with a child. And that sadness was with them every single day. His wife, Tivya, had been trying to have a child for years to no avail. One year, Moshe decided he wants to try to do something different. He knows about all the doctors, all the treatments he knows of, but he wants to do something different. He had heard that there was a particular honor in the synagogue. That particular honor held blessings for having children. Let me give you the background. You know, in the synagogue, you get called up for an aliyah, right? You've seen that. People get called up, they say the Baruch Hu. After the regular readings, there's the reading of the Haftorah, which is considered a more honorable reading. There is that every single Shabbat. In fact, every Monday and Thursday, people are called up to the Torah. But there's also these aliyot on the high holidays. And everyone tries to get one of these honors on the high holidays because it comes along with blessings. There's one particular aliyah that he heard. That's on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, the maftir, the Haftorah of that day. The Haftorah of that day tells the story of Hannah. Hannah was a woman who did not have children, and she wanted so much to have a child. And she would go to the tabernacle, the Mishkan, this is before the days of the Holy Temple, and she would pray, and she would pray, and she would pour out her heart to God. So much so that the high priest of the time, a man by the name of Eli HaKohen, thought she was intoxicated. He thought she was drunk because there was so much passion in her prayers that she appeared drunk. And he finally says, "Why are you coming intoxicated to such a holy place?" And she turns to him, and with this most eloquent of words, she says, "I'm not intoxicated. I'm pouring out my heart to God for prayer for that I be blessed with a child." And there's this beautiful exchange between Eli Cohen and Hannah. And the words of Hannah are so powerful, with so much passion about her yearning for a child, and that she would devote the child's life to God. She's blessed with a child by Eli Cohen, and sure enough, she gives birth to the man that became Samuel the prophet, one of the greatest of all. That story is read on Rosh Hashanah. As we pour out our heart in prayer, we talk about one of the most powerful of all prayers ever said by a human being, the powerful prayer of Hannah. So he had heard that whoever gets that aliyah, that particular reading, there's a powerful blessing that comes along for children. He also had heard that there's a community in Israel where there was a Hasidic Rebbe, that in that particular synagogue, it just seems to happen year after year that whoever gets that aliyah seems to be blessed with the miracle of a child. So he needs to get to a particular synagogue and get a particular aliyah. It was a long journey, but again, he had the means to do it. He tells his wife, "I'm going away for Rosh Hashanah, but it's for us. It's for us. I'm doing this for us. I heard about this, and I want to just try it." Now, the problem is he's not from this community. Why would they give him this aliyah? There's so many others in this particular synagogue that probably also want it. Besides, if he heard about this, people all over the world heard about this. So other people would be coming. Now, that particular synagogue would auction off their aliyahs for charity. So it's open to anyone, but there would be a bidding for it. And the poor of the community benefited from this auction because all the funds end up going to help the poor. So he's in the room for the bidding. He knows what he needs to get. He doesn't need the regular aliyah. He doesn't need the opening of the ark. He needs the aliyah from Machir and the Haftorah, the story of Hannah, to bring home the blessing to his wife. And the bidding begins. And it's moving fast. It goes from 10,000, 50,000, 20,000, 25,000. It keeps going and going and going until it settles on a whopping $36,000. Winning bid, Moshe Levi. He bought it. He owes it to his wife. He's going to do it. Chase a dream, try for this blessing. Why not? He's overjoyed that he got the aliyah that he came for. And he's in the synagogue, and they're praying, and the prayers begin, and the Hasidic Rebbe is there, and we see the intensity of the prayers, and it's all building up for this big moment for him. What he came for, this dream. It cost a large sum of money, but it's just a small price to pay for such a blessing. He's getting, I would say, within 15 minutes of when they're going to call him up for the Torah. And suddenly his mind starts going in a different direction. Did he ever stop to think about the person that he outbid? What's going on in that person's life? We even ask. Maybe that person has been waiting even more years. Maybe that person doesn't have the means that he had. And suddenly all he can think about, the person he outbid, what must be going on in that person's mind right now, at this very moment, when he knows he came this far to get that aliyah, and he didn't get it. Moshe Levi walks up to the Gabbai. The Gabbai is the one that calls up the people for their aliyah. He whispers something into his ear. The Gabbai looks back at him like, "Are you sure?" And he says, "Yes, I'm sure." And it comes to that aliyah, and the Gabbai calls out the name of the person that Moshe Levi felt outdid. And he said, "This is a gift for you, given to you by this man." That's feeling for someone. That's caring about someone. Moshe's replacement cried his way through the Haftorah, whatever he was going through in his life, whatever difficulty he was going through. 1 year later, Moshe and Sylvia Lieberfeld were blessed with a baby girl. Now, I don't know what happened with the couple whose husband did get that aliyah. whether that key worked to that lock for them as well. But this much I do. There is a master key that opens up doors, that opens up the gates to God's bounty and compassion. That's empathy. When we're empathetic for another, God takes notice. When we're there to try to alleviate the pain of others, God takes notice. You know, there's a reason why we believe that empathy is the key of all keys. Because it happens to be the Almighty's own signature characteristic. That's the way God behaves. God is so many things, and yes, He's unknowable, He's infinite, He's undefinable. One thing that we can, however, say about God that almost defines Him goes back to the first way He introduced Himself towards us. The first appearance that God makes at the burning bush, to us as a Jewish nation, He makes it to Moses, who wants to be our leader. So in the book of Exodus, that first entry of God is in a thorn bush. And you have to wonder, why a thorn bush? Why couldn't it be something more impressive? A beautiful cedar tree, an oak tree. Thorn bush, of all types of bushes, why? It's such a strange way to make your entry. In a thorn bush, a flame in the thorn bush. And the commentary Rashi says, a lonely bush and not any other tree, because God is saying, Imoi anoichi b'tzara. Translated, I but it won't be consumed. You're enslaved, but you won't be destroyed. You will be taken out. You will live on. So the reason I believe that God places the highest value on our sharing the burdens of those in distress is because at the end of the day, that is what best defines who God is. So when we do that, we're connecting to God's essential attributes. He is familiar with that behavior because He practices that behavior. In 1895, there was a huge fire in the town of Bryski. No relation to Bryski, just happens to have been the name. In those days when fires like that broke out, you didn't just call the fire department, they were there within 16 seconds with hoses. A fire in the shtetl was damaging to a good part of the shtetl, and many houses would be lost in such a fire. And it was a catastrophic fire in 1895. The Rabbi of Brysk, Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, was running, dashing from house to house to help rescue people, to find children, bring the children back to their parents. It was chaos, helping putting out the fire. He was like a madman that evening, not stopping for 1 second to help. This was his town. This was his people. In the aftermath of the disaster, which destroyed many homes of that city, Rabbi Chaim himself worked tirelessly for the rebuilding and the restoration of people's houses. During the months that it took for this town of Brysk to be rebuilt, Rabbi Chaim himself slept on the floor of the synagogue. He wouldn't go home even though his house wasn't affected. And as much as his wife and his family and his congregation would say, go home to your bed, he refused to. He slept on the floor every single night, and he said, until everyone in my community has a bed to sleep on, I will not be sleeping in my bed. Until I finish the task of rebuilding everyone's home, I will not sleep in a bed. That's empathy. That's what it means to carry the burden of your fellow. This may be more a story that you remember, December 10th, 2019. The terrorists entered the Jersey City kosher supermarket. Anyone remember this attack? He opened fire, killing 3 people and leaving the store in shambles. Among the dead, When the store owner's wife, her name was Leah Mindel Ferenc, and his cousin Moshe Deitch, both of whom worked along with Moshe Ferenc in the business. So in the days following the attack, Mr. Ferenc was mourning the loss of the mother of his children, obviously thinking about his business and his destroyed store wasn't high on his list of things to think about at this time. But others were. Here are the beauty of this Jewish community. Jersey City is a very heavy Jewish populated area. There were 4 other kosher supermarkets in Jersey City. His was the 5th. The 4 other owners got together. They decided this terrorist walked into that store because it was a Jewish store, because it was a kosher market. Moshe Ferenc took it for all of us. It could have been any of us. We all bear the same responsibility. They all pitched in. They leased a new store. They stocked it. New refrigerations, new freezers. When it was all done, they came to visit Moshe Ferenc. These are his competitors. They gave him the key to his new store. And they called it the Olive Branch Kosher Market. Just to represent peace. And think about it for a moment. I would understand if the community pitched in to help. But you don't expect competitors to do it. Anyone that will be walking into that store and buying a container bill could have been buying it at one of their own stores. It's taking money out of their own pocket. And it wasn't just that they rebuilt the store like it was before. They doubled the size of it. They modernized it. He has the most beautiful store in Jersey City, nicer than the stores of before that helped them. That's empathy. That's caring. That's what it means to carry the burden of your fellow. It's not their sorrows alone. It's ours collectively. And someone put it so well. It is not our job to understand why bad things happen to good people. It is our job to help when bad things happen to good people. You see, it's not our job to understand why bad things happen to good people because we can't. It's not a question we can really answer. We can try to philosophize it, we can read books about it, but the bottom line is it will remain a question. So we can't do anything about it. We can't do anything as far as understanding it, but we can do something to help the person that's suffering. That's something we can do. We can be there to help carry the burden. I'm sure many of you have heard the name of Rabbi Esther Jungreis, a blessed memory. We had her visit this community. She spoke at the Hyatt Hotel in the past. She's written many books. She was a wonderful, wonderful Rebbe, a Holocaust survivor, a very passionate speaker, and she inspired so many people. She devoted her life to Jewish outreach and education. She passed away a few years ago, but she left this remarkable legacy of her accomplishments. And she once told this story, I believe she told it when she was here at the Hyatt. She said there was a couple in her community that suffered a terrible tragedy. They lost a young child, and they were in deep despair. Shortly afterwards, Rabbi Jungreis ran into the father of the child at a local market. And he turns to her and he says, you know, your husband, Meshulam, he literally, he came to our house and he gave me so much hope. Because of him, I'm able to cope with this terrible loss. She comes home, asks her husband, what did you say? Teach me. I've never found the right words to say to someone that suffered such a tragedy, such a loss. But whatever you said, he told me that you saved him. You lifted him up. That he's able to cope with life because of you. Tell me. And her husband says to Esther, I didn't say anything. And she says, stop being humble with me. Don't be modest with me. I want to learn. Obviously, you said something that worked. I'm always visiting with such tragic cases. I'd like to learn. Tell me. And he stands lying. I ain't saying anything. So she figures he doesn't want to tell me. It's his own secret. A few weeks go by and she finds herself with the same father again. And she realized this is the opportunity. So she says, you know, the last time we met, you told me that my husband helped you tremendously. What did he say to you? So he said, Rebbetzin, your husband, didn't say a word. He came over to our home. He walked over to me. He didn't say anything. He took my hands in his hands. He stared into my eyes. And he began to cry. And I began. And then he embraced me. And I embraced him. And we held on to each other. That's what happened. But at that moment, I felt someone out with tears. Someone feels what I feel. That's what I needed. I just needed that. And he gave it to me. Sometimes we don't have the words to say. But we have the heart and we have the soul. And that's higher than words. That's more powerful than words. The eyes are the windows of the soul. And when you look deeply into someone's eyes, you feel their soul and they feel yours. You know why Moses was selected to be the redeemer and leader of the Jewish people? After all, when he's introduced us as the leader at the burning bush, up until that point, what did he do that he merited to get the job? What was Moses' resume like? That when God looked at all the resumes of the potential candidates, he said, that's the one. And Moses clearly argues with God, and he says, no, you must be making a mistake. And God says, no, I know, you're the one. What was it? The answer is 2 words. The Torah tells you the answer in 2 words. You know the background of the story, perhaps, right? Moses is born to his mom Yocheved, that she's afraid that the Egyptians are going to come, and they're going to throw the baby into the Nile. So what does she do? She hides him in a basket. You're familiar with the story?
Yeah.
You watch The Prince of Egypt? You watch the 10 Commandments? Or you study the Bible here? One of the 3, right? Puts him into the basket, and then there's her daughter Miriam, Moses' sister, is watching. All of that you know. And Pharaoh's daughter goes bathing in the Nile, finds this basket, has compassion for this child, decides to adopt the child as her own, and raise him as the Prince of Egypt. But Moses always knows who his biological mother is. He always had a relationship with his family, with his biological mother. It wasn't a hidden story for him. So he knew that the slaves were his people. He has a choice to make. He can live comfortably as the Prince of Egypt in the palace with all the luxuries. Or he can feel that these slaves are his people. The Torah tells us 2 words, Vayar v'sivlosam. Saw them in their burdens. Moses understood that these were his people, and he was going to protect them and do everything he possibly can to help them. He didn't just see with his eyes, he saw with his heart. And as we know, as the stories of the Bible unfold, he gets involved to save a Jew being beaten by an Egyptian. Like Yarabisavlos, he sees their pain. He gets involved. You see that part of his characteristic when he runs away to Midian after Pharaoh is chasing after him. He runs to Midian and he sees the women of Midian being harassed at the well. Again, he gets involved. He protects them. He saves them. He's a nosei ba'ol, using the Talmudic expression as we started with. He has empathy. He cares about them. And that's where he was chosen. By Yarabisavlosim, because he looked at them. He cared for them. Felt their pain. And so, when you know a person is hurting, you look at them. You really look at them. Show them that you're there for them. That you're not too busy. That you're not too tired. You're not too absorbed in your own life to put aside whatever you're going through and care about them. And listen. Just listen. We can all do that. We may not be able to fix what they're going through, but listening and being there for them and showing them we care, that empathy, everyone is capable of doing. Strange thing happened in the city of Gulf Breeze, Florida a few years ago. Gulf Breeze is a city in the Florida Panhandle. It got hit very hard, not just by the pandemic, but also by the devastation caused by Hurricane Sally that came just a few months before during the pandemic. So they were really struggling in this city. 114 residents had overdue utility balances, those threatening notices that their utility was going to be shut off, suddenly found themselves getting a notice that their balance was completely paid off. 114 people woke up to find out that someone paid off their unpaid utility bills just before they were going to get shut off. Now, a news reporter heard this and he knew that the year before a similar thing happened, and on a given day, a whole bunch of dozens of people had their utility bills paid off. So he decided he's going to investigate, he's going to find out from the utility companies, in any way that a good investigative reporter can, who's doing this, you know? And he comes up with a name, someone named Mike Essman. He was an owner of a local construction company, and he was the one that's been paying off unpaid utility bills. So the reporter shows up at Mike Essman's office and says, I know it's you, I've done my investigation, and all I want to know, it's a beautiful story, I just want to know why. What prompted you to do such a thing? And he said it was winter of 1983. What was winter of 1983? He said, I wasn't living in sunny Florida at the time. I had 3 young girls of my own at home. The temperature was 6 degrees where we lived. There was ice and frost inside the house and outside the house. We were freezing inside it. I didn't have $1 in my pocket to pay a utility bill. And my gas and electric were turned off. And I had 3 little kids with me. We froze. Fast forward, I've been able to make it through life. I have good business. But the thought of anyone ever having their utilities turned off is not something I can do. And so that's my arrangement with the utility companies. Before you shut anyone off, I get a notice. I have the means, I'm going to pay it off. No one should ever have utility shut off. Knowing what it feels like, knowing what he felt like in the winter of 1983, Mike Essman used that experience as a motivation to pay off utility bills for others that were about to have their shut off. So we've all in our lives have had challenges. We've all had struggles. We've all had adversity in our lives, whether they were financial, whether they were physical, whether they were emotional, or otherwise. Now, we can look back at those periods in our lives and look back at them with bitterness. Why did I have to go through that? Those are the dark clouds of my life. Or we can try to forget about them all. Just try to erase it from our memory. What Mike Essman teaches us is there's a third option. Use that to motivate you to help someone else. You know what it was like to go through it, and you see someone that you know going through that, do something because you know, because you lived through it, because you have this experience in your life. Let that motivate you to help others. So if someone ever gave you a loan or a leg up when you needed it most, you wanted to start a business but you didn't have the money, and you turned to someone, and that person was there for you, or that person wasn't there for you, and you remembered that so much. Well, find that similar person today, that person that you were back then. I know what you need and I'm going to be there for you. Or whatever experience you have, give that guidance to a young person. You have good experience in your business career, or you retired and you had good experience. There's youngsters out there that don't know which career to take. They don't know where to get started, how to get started, how to write a resume. And you have that skill. Give it out to others. Take whatever adversity you had in your life, think about it, and think about how you can use that experience that you went through to be empathetic to others. And that's the focus, my friends. Of course, we're filled with gratitude when it comes to this special day of Thanksgiving. But we also have to remember what brought us those blessings. All that which we're going to be thankful for tomorrow. Or it doesn't have to wait until tomorrow. You can be thankful today. In fact, you can be thankful every single day. But when we're celebrating that holiday called by the name Thanksgiving, take some time and really dwell on it. If it's God that you want to be thankful for, the best way to pay God back is to help others, is to show that empathy for others. So let's all aspire for empathy. Even if we don't think we have what we have to offer, there's always something we can do. There's always something we can ask someone. And too often we think that we don't want to bring it up with them, so we don't want to say, how you doing? I heard you're suffering from this, or you're going through this. And you say, you know what, it's best that I don't bring it up. I don't want to remind them of their pain. Trust me, they're living with their pain 24 hours a day. Unemployment is not contagious. If someone doesn't have a job, you're not going to catch it by being there for them. In the late 1900s, early 2000s, late 1990s, early 2000s, there was a wealthy man by the name of Aaron Lichtenberg. Aaron Lichtenberg is an extremely generous benefactor. He's a philanthropist and he gives lots of money to charity, millions of dollars to charity. Specifically, he gives to yeshivos, places of Torah learning, educational establishments. That's where he earmarks a lot of his charity. So one day, a visiting rabbi that came to him, Mr. Lichtenberg, always invites in anyone that comes to see him, talk about their institution and their organization and their school. And the rabbi that was there was so blown away by his kindness, by his hospitality, that he asked the question that others fail to ask. Why? Why do you give so much away to charity? It's so beautiful. I'm not complaining. I came for some of it. But what motivates you? What's the motivating factor here that makes you stand out from others? Sarah Lichtenberg said, I'll tell you the story that changed me. I grew up in a small town in Poland. That shtetl did not have a yeshiva of its own. So when there was no more teacher for my parents to hire for private tutoring, they had to send me away to another city to go to a yeshiva there. And that's where I would live, at the yeshiva in the dormitory. Now, I was young. I was very, very scared. I was very lonely. I'm going out of town from out of town school. I was also very hungry on that first day. Whatever sandwich we had on the way to this town, I ate, and now I'm here, I'm dropped off. I'm this new kid in town, a new kid in the school. I'm shown my classroom. I'm shown the books. I'm shown where I'm going to sleep. And what about food? I was very hungry as a little kid. So, yeshivas back in the days in Poland, and my father would often tell me about this, they didn't have the money to serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner to their students. What they had was the community. So the community literally would sign up for how many kids you're taking for breakfast, how many kids you're taking for lunch, how many kids you're taking for dinner. And everyone would be assigned, the kid would be assigned which house host you're going to for breakfast, lunch, and dinner that day. It was called in Yiddish Essentag. That's what it was. To get dinner, he needed to be assigned. So he asked around, how do I get assigned to where I'm going to eat something? And they said, there's a monitor. He's the chairman of the Essentag. So he goes over to the monitor and he says, I'm new here, I just arrived today. What do I do about lunch and dinner? So the monitor says, well, these usually have to be made days in advance. And there's very little I can do about it today, but I'll get you started tomorrow. Tomorrow is nice. I'm hungry today. He doesn't want to complain, he's new here. He sits down on the bench. He's a little bit broken, he's very hungry. And the monitor takes notice that, this is a lonely kid here, so he goes over to him and says, listen, about lunch that's going on right now, and there's no way, there's no cell phones here that you're going to call someone and say, send me somewhere else. So I'll find something to give you some cookies to hold you. About dinner, I do have one name on the list that I haven't assigned anyone to yet. I'm going to give you an address to go to, tell you how to get it. But I also want to tell you the reason I never assign anyone to that house is because it's a widow with 3 little children. And I just never want to take away food from a widow and her 3 little children, so I never send anyone there. But being that she did sign up and she asked for someone to be sent, it's okay for you to go. Now, how's that for an invite? You go into the house that they didn't want to send anyone else because it's a widow with 3 little kids that doesn't have enough food to feed her 3 little kids. But you can go! So he goes, and he knocks on the door. He sees the house from the outside looking terrible, need of repair. And this little boy answers the door. This is all the story that Aaron is telling this rabbi that came to visit him, why he devotes his life to Chad. This little boy answers the door and this big smile breaks out on his face. And he yells out, "Mommy, Mommy, a Talmud Chacham is here." Talmud Chacham means a Torah scholar. A Torah scholar is here. Maybe he came to eat with us. Which means these kids have been waiting every day in anticipation that the yeshiva would send a student and no one ever came. So here this kid is all excited, a Talmud Chacham, which is usually a word we use for a scholar. Now, Aaron says, I'm looking around like, is there someone else behind me? Because I'm this 5th grader here, I'm this little kid. Who's the Talmud Chacham? And then the other 2 kids come running to the door. Yippee, yippee, a Talmud Chacham is here, a Talmud Chacham, Mommy, come quick. And the mother comes to the door, this very sweet lady. And she says, I'm so happy you came. We've been waiting now for weeks for the school to take us up on our offer. Finally, we have a yeshiva student to eat dinner with us. Come to the table, come eat with us. This is what the woman did. She served everyone, all of her children, a plate for dinner. And then she took an empty plate and she put it in the middle of the table. And she said, children, who would like to share their food with the Talmud Chacham? And the kids start taking from their plate, putting it on the middle plate. He said, I'm looking for a whole kid to call into. I'm so embarrassed that I'm taking away food from orphans. I'm taking away food from poor orphans. They're giving me away. But I was starving. And I started eating the food that they were putting on the center plate for me. And then the other kid pipes up, why did you eat the food that he put on the plate? How come you didn't eat my food yet? How come you didn't eat my food yet? And they're literally arguing that me, the Talmud Chacham, should eat of their food. And they had all of this excitement. I ate the whole plate. I'm embarrassed to say I ate every single thing that was put on. I was so hungry. And after the meal, the mother and her children walked me to the door and they thanked me for coming. They were so happy. They said it was such a special treat. Please, please, come again. I left their home. I walked back to the yeshiva and I cried home. I'm not sure if I was crying because of how moved I was by these precious children. Their excitement about feeding someone they thought was a Torah scholar. Or that I was crying because I felt so bad that I ate their food. That I took away the food that was their food. And I want to admit that I never went back to that house again. I couldn't bring myself to do it. The thought of going there and taking away the kids' dinner, I couldn't ever bring myself to do it. A few months went by. World War II broke out. We all ran for our lives. Somehow I survived. But I found out that the widow and her 3 children were like that. That beautiful woman and her adorable children were killed without mercy, and Nazis simply showed up at the door and shot them. They have lived with me every single day. And you ask me why I devote my life to charity, every dime I've ever given doing a memory of that widow.
Because the effect that this has had on me every single day, the feeling of excitement to give away when you didn't have yourself, they've taught me more life lessons in that one meal than anyone can ever teach me. And people think that those that were killed in the Holocaust, there's no memory of them. Not that home, not that family. They have lived with me every single day. In every tzedakah I give, in every Torah institution I've helped, and every learning that takes place through the funds that I have given in the millions of dollars is done in the memory of one family and in honor of one meal. That's the master key to the treasury of God's bounty and compassion. When we emulate his attributes, he throws open the windows of heaven and he showers us with this bonanza of blessings, ensuring that we're blessed with good health, with nachas, with sustenance, with prosperity and abundance. A wise man once said this: the hardest arithmetic to master is that which enables us to count our blessings. We have to stop and be honest with ourselves of the blessings that God has given us. How grateful we have to be each and every single day for our health, for our families, for our friends, for our communities. And as I have learned the hard way, for our medical facilities, for our nurses, for our doctors, for our paramedics, and our helicopter pilots. The list goes on and on. So let's try on this day of gratitude, of thanksgiving, to be other-centered. Whenever we replace thoughts about our own well-being with thoughts about the well-being of others, we open up portals of our soul and allow the light and the blessings to shine in. I want to conclude with one final story. 1947, pre-independence Israel, known then as Palestine. Many Jewish immigrants from war-torn Poland and Russia were brought over to what was called the Atlit absorption camp on the outskirts of Haifa. Among them were many young orphans who suddenly found themselves alone in the world. And they're coming home now. They're coming home to Israel. In response, orphanages throughout what was then Palestine, today Israel, were scurrying to make available as many beds as possible for these children. After all, these are children of Holocaust victims who are alone in the world. This is our homeland. We're going to make space for them. So they needed beds, rooms, blankets, pillows. They needed everything. And with poverty so rampant in the communities back then, it wasn't easy. One such orphanage, called Bate Avot, was in the city of Bnei Brak. And they were told that on Sunday they were going to have this entire group of orphans being brought to their particular orphanages. They had no pillows, they had no blankets. They let the rabbi of the community know that we're getting a whole busload of orphans Sunday. We need help. So the rabbi of the community let it be known on Friday that he wants everyone in the community in shul Shabbos afternoon. After davening, go home for lunch, then come back, an emergency meeting, an emergency announcement. Well, the rabbi's calling everyone has to come, they all show up. The shul is packed, men, women, children, everyone came to hear what he had to say. The rabbi gets up and he teaches a piece of Talmud. He says, every once in a while you have contradictions. This law says this law says this is great, but what if the two laws contradict one another? What do we do with contradictory Jewish laws? And he gave an example. There is a law that says that in the days that you had servants, in days, let's suppose housekeepers today, and you only have one pillow, you have to give the pillow to the servant. They come before you. If you only have one blanket, they get the blanket. Jewish law. Got to take care of your servant. So you have to make sure they have. Interesting law. Maybe hard to follow, but it's part of Jewish law. He says there's another law discussed called Chayecha Kodmin, that your life takes precedence. That you always have to first take care of yourself, and then you can take care of others. There's a contradiction here. Which one is it? Does my servant come first or do I come first? One source of the Talmud is saying servant comes first. The other source is saying I come first and my life takes precedent. Which one is it? And so how do we reconcile this contradiction? And the rabbi says, I'll give you the answer. Our sages knew that a Jew would not be able to sleep at night knowing that their servant doesn't have a pillow and they do. The only way this Jew will ever fall asleep is if they take their pillow and give it to the servant. Now you'll be able to fall asleep. It may not be so comfortable, but at least your conscience is not bothering you. So when the Talmud says your life comes first, because your life comes first, take that pillow and give it to your servant. Otherwise, you're not going to sleep tonight. They're not contradictory at all. They support one another. At that point, the rabbi breaks down crying. And he says, dear friends, we have a large group of orphans who will be coming to our city tomorrow, and the orphanages have no pillows and blankets for them. So I beg you, for your sake, because chayecha kolne, because your life takes precedent, you won't be able to sleep knowing that these precious children do not have a blanket and pillow. So as soon as Havdalah is made, I will stand here at the synagogue. Go home, and if you want to sleep tonight, bring me your blanket and your pillow so that these orphans will have a bed to sleep on, a pillow to put their head on, and a quilt to cover them. Minutes after Shabbat, hundreds of men, women, and children are there online with their pillows and blankets lining up in front of the rabbi's house. And when the rabbi felt that there was enough for the children that were coming, he said, that's it, all of you, you can go back home now. You can rest comfortably. The orphans have what they need. But there was one woman who would not leave. She remained standing there and she said, pleading with the rabbi, please take mine, take one more, take mine. And you can't blame her because she wanted to sleep that night. When we're there for those in need, whether the people in our immediate community or outside the community, we do this for their sake, but we also do it for our sake. Because we know that our fates are intertwined. If my brother or sister is hurting, if their child is hurting, how can we sleep at night? So we're at this time of Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving on the Jewish calendar is going to be followed by Hanukkah. We're in this season of holiday, of miracles, of thanks. Let's celebrate them by utilizing the key to the treasury, the key to all blessings. Show compassion and caring for others when we demonstrate the ultimate showing of gratitude. And it brings down the divine blessings upon us, blessings for good health, blessings for happiness, blessings for nachas, blessings for success. I just want to conclude with this commercial, so to say. We're fortunate in our community that we are been blessed with a few very generous families that step forward and they're challenging the community. They're willing to match $2 per dollar, which means a 3-to-1 match. For every dollar that one contributes from Erev Thanksgiving from today up until December 7th. So for every $1, they will give an additional $2, which will mean $3. All of these funds will be used to help people out there. So if you want to show gratitude for the blessings you have, take advantage of this offer, whatever it is that you can afford, whatever it is that you can contribute. And take advantage of this match. And we'll see to it that in our community and the surrounding communities, if someone's in need, if someone is in a state of desperation, they turn to us, that we're there for them. And this way, you pay it forward. You celebrate Thanksgiving by truly giving it over to others. For those of you that are here in person in the room, you have in front of you these pledge cards. You can use those and give it over to Jacob after class. For those of you in the Zoom world or Facebook world or YouTube world, The website you can go to is chabadkeneo.com with the backslash and the word match, M-A-T-C-H. And Jacob, you'll put it up on the screen. It's already up on the screen. And we thank you again. We thank those that are matching your contributions. We thank all of you. And we thank God for all the blessings that He has given all of us. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and a very early happy Hanukkah. It's never too early to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah. It should be Hanukkah all year round. And I also want to thank Jackie, who worked really hard preparing a Thanksgiving lunch for you with some turkey. Thank you all for coming. We'll be back on the regular theme next Wednesday at 12:30. Thank you all.
This may arguably have been the most emotional I've seen.